Guys, it is Joy Week 2. Are you pumped? Are you excited? I need to tell you on the front end, this will be the most fun that I have ever had during a message. I can't promise it will be the most fun you have ever had, but I have suspicions that it just might be. We're going to have a blast today. I have 2 passages of scripture I'd like to read over you as we begin. And you go, 2 passages of scripture? We usually only do 1. You're in for it today, folks. 2 passages. The first one comes out of the book of Philippians. The Apostle Paul writes in verse 12, and I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me here has helped to spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Christ and because of my imprisonment. Most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. It's true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, for they know I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives as they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my chains more painful to me. But that doesn't matter. Oh, it's so important. Paul, in one of the most difficult circumstances, when others are heaping up his troubles upon him, has the perspective to say, but that doesn't matter. Turn to the person next to you. Tell them those words. But that doesn't matter. You may have gotten a fight on the way to church today, and you need to say it again, but that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. So I rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice. Second passage I'd like to read over you is a single verse from James chapter 1, verse 2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Can I trust you to preach this with me today? Okay, we're going to do this together. Beaver Creek, Ironton, online. Title of the message for today is KillJoy. KillJoy. Turn to the person next to you. Tell them, don't be a killjoy. Don't be a killjoy. Don't be a killjoy. And you can have a seat. You can have a seat. Some of you have no idea why there is a monkey on the screen. We'll get to that in a minute. Partially because it makes me laugh, but we'll get to that in a minute. So this is where we ended last week, if you weren't with us, that you will know a tree by its fruit. You know if an apple tree is an apple tree because it has apples on it. You would never look at a tree that has apples on it and go, it's a pear tree. No, it's an apple tree. You will know a tree by its fruit. And you will know a follower of Christ by their fruit. So what is the outcome? What is the output? What is the fruit of being a follower of Christ? And Jesus in John 15 says, you are to remain in me. You are to stay stuck on me, and I will abide in you. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. Stay connected to me. And the fruit is joy. I'm after your joy. When you follow me, you will experience joy. Your joy will increase. That is what I want for you. I want joy, which poses a problem. Because some of you look at that and you go, well, I abided, or at least I think I abided. I mostly abided. Like my church attendance has been a little intermittent recently, but like overall, I have kind of mostly remained in Jesus, but I don't experience joy. And so if I remain, if I abide, but I don't experience joy, why is that? Who took my joy? Who killed my joy that was rightfully mine? So today, folks, we have a little bit of a murder mystery that we need to solve. Guys, we've got a good old-fashioned whodunit on our hands. And we're going to figure out who killed the joy. Who's the joy killer? Maybe in the room, maybe in your life. If you look under your seats, there's cards of a character that, no, I'm just kidding. We're not going that far. Did anyone grow up playing a game of Clue? Anyone else play Clue constantly? Yes. Out of curiosity, how many of you played the right way and went room to room to figure out the clues of who it was? And how many of you just said, I'm going to get about 5 turns in and I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and I'm going to make a guess whether I'm right or not? Because that's how I played Clue constantly. But in the game of Clue, you collected bits of information, collected evidence, and you ruled out people, and you were given a suspect list that looked something like this. And there were suspects: Mr. Green, Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. Peacock. Some of you played the original game, you had Dr. Orchid. If you played a later game, Dr. Orchid was removed. And I think it was Miss White who would replace Dr. Orchid. And so you just went room to room and you said, all right, who is it? And you would rule out person after person. And so today we're going to play a little bit of a game of Clue. We're going to figure out this murder mystery, except instead of Mr. Green and Professor Plum, we have Mr. Helpless and Professor Personality and Colonel Circumstances and Mrs. Anxious and Dr. Dysfunctional Relationships. And we need to figure out who killed the joy. Who killed Jesus' promised joy? We don't always experience joy. Are we honest enough as a church to admit that this morning? To go, I don't always experience joy. Am I the only one that you go, yep, that's me? I'm willing to say I don't always experience joy. And so who killed it? I would like for you to make your bets and wagers now. Maybe if you'll take your notes out and go, I think it's this one. I think it's Dr. Dysfunctional Relationships. I think they're the reason why I don't have joy. And we're going to gather a bit of evidence to rule out some of these most likely suspects in our murder mystery whodunit game of Clue on a Sunday morning. Have you ever played Clue in church through a sermon? How great is this? How much fun are we gonna have? Let's begin the game. Philippians chapter 1, first bit of evidence starts in verse 12. Paul writes, I don't want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened here has helped to spread the good news. And so we would likely go, well, the everything must be Paul got a warm reception and people were encouraging and delightful. And he's sitting on the beach somewhere and he has beautiful weather and there's not a pandemic. Of course, if everything has helped to spread the good news, that is what's happening. But then he says, for everyone here, including the whole palace guard, Paul, why is there a palace guard in your good circumstances, knows that I am in chains because of Christ and because of my imprisonment. Most of the believers here have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. If you were with us last week, we actually looked at Paul's prison cell, which is known as the house of darkness. And Paul, from a prison cell, for no crime that he committed, says, things are going fantastically. And he doesn't say passive aggressively, things are going great. He's not being sarcastic. Listen, guys, things are awesome. Everything is awesome. It has helped to spread from prison. If Paul can have joy in the midst of worse circumstances than any of us have faced, then Colonel Circumstances did not kill your joy. Now, I'm not saying for a second that you have to love a difficult season, a difficult moment, okay? That is a sign of mental illness. That is not what I am preaching this morning. It is not. I'm in a traffic jam and the car behind me just bumped my bumper and they have a Be Hope sticker on their car. Praise God. Like, that is not what we're saying, okay? Your circumstances, you don't have to love bad circumstances. But if Paul can have joy in the midst of horrible circumstances, then your circumstances didn't kill your joy. Sorry, some of you are already eliminated from the game. You're like, that's it. That was my guy, Colonel Circumstances. It's okay. You can make a re-guess. Let's move on. Second bit of evidence, verse 15. It's true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, for they know I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives as they preach about Christ. They preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely intending to make my chains more painful to me. This is what Paul says in this moment. See if you identify. The very people who I was counting on to be my support network are now making my life harder. Anyone ever been there? The very people who I thought would encourage me and lift me up are pushing me down and making my chains more painful to me. What do we call that? Well, we call that a dysfunctional relationship. We call it, oh, that's not healthy. There's something that is wrong there. There's something that needs to be broken. And if Paul, looking at his fellow Christians, goes, you guys are making my life worse, but I still have joy, then Dr. Dysfunctional Relationship needs to receive the X and get crossed off the list. Now, I want to clarify again. I am not saying that your relationship is not dysfunctional. It very well might be. It probably is if you have a suspicion that it is. I'm not saying you should stay in it, but I am saying that your dysfunctional relationship is not the reason why you don't have joy. If Paul can have joy in the midst of dysfunction, you can have joy in the midst of dysfunction. Who's still in the game? Who didn't have their suspect crossed off? Everybody's still, okay, you're still in. Let's keep going. Third bit of evidence this morning. Verse 12 again. And I want you to know, my dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me has helped to spread the good news. Here's the unique thing about Paul's everything, is he has no control over a bit of it. The food that he ate was because someone gave a gift to him. The fact that his letter got distributed was because someone else did it for him. The fact that his letter is preserved for us today is because someone else preserved it. Paul in prison has no influence, no impact, no authority whatsoever. He has no control over anything that is happening in his life, even the reason why he's in prison or why he's getting out. And so I want to mark this one off, and then I need to spend a little bit of time in confession this morning. Mr. Helpless is not the reason why you don't have joy. And if I had to guess one, this would be mine. This would be mine. And this is how I live my life. I have no problem with there being bad outcomes or difficult circumstances in my life. But it better be because of a decision that I made and not a decision that you made. Anyone else ever been there? Like, I don't want to bear the consequences of your bad decisions in my life. I'm okay with it being hard, but I better be the reason why it's hard. I don't want to reap the fruit of your horrific decisions. I want to be in control and in charge. If it goes poorly, that's fine. But at least I did it. At least I'm the one who did it to begin with. And Paul strikes me, he strikes me so much in this, like to the core. And he goes, I have no control. I have no power. I have nothing whatsoever. And I still have joy. And I have to go, even when I feel helpless, even when I have no control over the mandatory curfew that is set over us at 10 p.m., because that's when the virus comes out at night. This is just fun. We have fun. Can we have fun together? I told you, this is going to be a fun day. I can still have joy. This is a joke. I understand why the curfew is there, okay? We understand that? We're same page? Okay, honesty, trust. We're good. Fourth bit of evidence, a verse that we actually didn't look at yet, verse 19 in chapter 1. He says this, for I know that as you pray for me and the Spirit of Jesus Christ helps me, this will lead to my deliverance. He is speaking of his emotional, his spiritual, and his physical deliverance from prison. He has no control over this. We have already established this. But his feelings about the future are rested not in his influence or authority or control, but in his confidence in God. He goes, pray for me. It'll lead to my deliverance. No matter what, it'll lead to my deliverance. Paul has no anxiety over the future because of his incredible confidence in God. Mrs. Anxious, you're off the list. You're not the killer of the joy. It wasn't you. You may feel uncertain about a very uncertain future, but it is not the reason why you don't have joy. So we only have We've only got one suspect left. Who picked Professor Personality? Who was there? You're like, oh yeah, there we go. I nailed it, except there's one more bit of evidence we need to look at. Verse 18. He says, but that doesn't matter. But that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way. So I rejoice. Why, Paul? Enneagram people, he goes, because I'm a 7. Myers-Briggs people, because I'm an extrovert. And so I rejoice because I am enthusiastic to the core and I just like throwing parties. It's part of who I am. So I rejoice and I will continue to rejoice. This is one of the great struggles that we face. All right, let's go ahead and X Professor of Personality off the list and then we'll come back and deal with that in just a second. This is one of the great struggles we face. We assume that our emotions come after, or our emotions come before our actions. And we go, I feel the emotion and the emotion dictates my action, and that is not faith. Faith is action first, emotion follows. Behavior first, feeling after. If you are waiting on the emotion of joy to engage in rejoicing and praise and worship, you will never experience joy. Christianity is verdict first, evidence second. Verdict first. Judge Joy coming back in. Verdict first. I have confidence in God. And then as you live out that verdict, you see all the evidence you need to have confidence in God. Verdict first. I will rejoice because God is worth rejoicing in. And then as I live, I begin to see evidence for why I should rejoice, and I rejoice in God. And so we choose on the front end, whether you're enthusiastic or not. When we say rejoice in church, it's not like, because I know you love it. Because I know your favorite thing, like when you came to church today or logged in online, you go, man, I really hope he tells us to turn to our neighbor at least 4 times to tell him something. That is my favorite part of church. I really hope he says, hey, let's take a second and praise God, because that is what I'm looking at. No, that's not what you're looking for. I know that. Here you go. Can we just kind of slide in, slide out, maybe get a cup of coffee and then go? No. And so we engage and we go, we rejoice, because when we rejoice, the joy follows. We choose in advance that our God is worth praising, and then we experience the impact of the praise of our God. Does this make sense, church? Are we on the same page? Take 5 seconds right now and let's thank our God for who he is, for what he's done, and that our confidence is in him. But now we got a problem. All our suspects are crossed off. This happened to anyone else whenever they play Clue? You're like partway through the game and you found the next bit of evidence. You walked into a room and it like marked off the last person or the last weapon on the list or the last room, and you're like, uh-oh, I've got no one left. Here we go. How do I backtrack and figure this out? So like it's not, let me just acknowledge this. It's not the fact that you're helpless. It's not your personality. It's not your circumstances as much as you think that is it. It's not your anxiety about the future. It's not your dysfunctional relationships. You may have dysfunctional relationships that you may need to take care of, but it's not your dysfunctional relationships. So let's add 2 late suspects to the game. The first one we need to acknowledge because it's there. It's God. You go, it's God. God's the reason why I don't have joy. Because God let this thing come into my life. He allowed it. I don't claim that he put it in my life, but he allowed it in my life, and I don't have joy. And we'll deal with this more fully throughout the series, but you need to know this. God is after your joy, not your ease, not your comfort, not your simplicity. He is after your joy. It is the ultimate thing that God wants in your life. And there's this beautiful intersection that God created you for joy, and you deeply desire joy, which is why God created you to desire joy. He goes, this is what I'm after in your life. And if you remain, abide in me, you will receive joy. And so it's not God, because that's what God is after. All right, so maybe it's the other guy. Maybe it's the devil. Maybe the devil is the reason why I don't have joy. And I need to address this because churches and Christians kind of run on one polar end or the other. And my fear is, as a church, we run on this end. We either blame the devil for all of our problems, 90% of which was our bad decisions. Could we just let that set in there for a second? The devil did it. No, you did it. That was a horror. You were driving 55 and a 35. That wasn't the devil. Slow down. Like, that's your problem. We either blame the devil for all our problems, or we don't acknowledge the role of the devil at all in our lives to tempt us, to steer us on the wrong path, and that there is one who doesn't want us to follow God at all costs. And my fear is, as a church, sometimes we're here, but we need to acknowledge this. The devil is not equal to God. Okay, the devil rebelled against God as a creation of God. The devil only has the power to create chaos, not to create out of nothing. The devil is not equal to God. And the devil has no power to take what only God can give. The devil has no power to take what only God can give. And so if you don't have joy, it's not the devil either. So who is it? Well, there's one more suspect we haven't identified, and that's me. It's me. Now, I just want to be clear, you need to read that as, it's me, not it's me. Like, Pastor, I knew it. So let me say this, if I don't have joy, my joy is my job. It is my responsibility. It's not anyone else's responsibility. It's not my wife's responsibility. It's not my kids' responsibility. It's not my church's responsibility. If I don't have joy, I have no one else to blame other than myself, because no one else can take what only God can give. And for some of you, that may land harsh and hard, but I want it to be empowering because of this truth. Is the moment that you claim responsibility over an area of your life, you are now positioned to make it better. You cannot help, you cannot change what you won't claim responsibility for. I say it like this in my own life. If it's in my hand, I can handle it. If it's in my hand, then I can handle it. If it's not in my hands, then I am helpless to impact and influence the future. But as the moment that I go, my joy is my job, it's in my hand, I am now positioned to regain the joy in my life. Before we move further, I want to take a second to make sure that you're able to go. If I don't have joy, I am the killer. I am the answer to this murder mystery. And as soon as I say that, as soon as I own that, now I can regain the joy through my perspective and actions and behavior. So how did you kill your joy? Well, you didn't do it on your own. There's good news. You didn't do it on your own. You weren't just self-sabotaging to begin with. You had some weapons, as any good game of Clue does. Now, I want to be clear, because some of you are going to want me to take this to completion. We don't have time to have a room. It didn't work within the message. We're not going to figure out where the murder happened. If we were going into the rooms, it would always happen in the lavatory, just because I thought that was hilarious when the murder happened in the lavatory. And so we've got some weapons, except for you, it's not the candlestick and the dagger and the rope and the monkey wrench. No, you didn't use the candlestick. You used comparison. Comparison killed your joy. Teddy Roosevelt famously said it like this: comparison is the thief of joy. You went, that was Teddy Roosevelt? That was Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt first said that. Comparison is the thief of joy, because every time I compare my life to someone else's and are envious of what they have or how their life looks, I lose my joy. I gain nothing, but I lose my joy. And the piece that is important on this, who's comparing you? Like, are your neighbors coming to you and going, wow, your lawn looks terrible compared to my lawn? Now, my neighbors do that, but my guess is your neighbors, we have that kind of relationship. Like, are your kids' friends coming up to you and you go, wow, my daughter scored a whole point higher on the test than your kid. How does that feel? Like, are they doing that to you? Is someone coming to your bedroom at night and forcing your social media feed in front of your face for you to compare your life to everyone else's right before you fall asleep? Is someone doing that to you? No. We're doing it to ourselves. And my great concern is not just when we compare ourselves, we lose joy. It's that we're comparing ourselves to fake pictures of other people's lives. You're not even comparing your life to their real life. You're comparing your life to their sanitized and photoshopped life. Let me give you an example. Last fall, my family took a picture. Isn't it lovely? Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. It's good. It's good. We took a family photo. My wife is a photographer, and so she makes us do this far more often than I would desire. And people like commented, my wife posted it, people commented it in the post and had all these different things. And then this one person commented this: what a perfect looking family. What a perfect looking family. Now I need to give you some pieces of evidence that aren't shown in this photo. First, and I say this as a member of the family and having my wife as a photographer, there is no family photo that has ever been taken that was just delightfully enjoyed by all the members of that family. There is always at least one person in that family who does not want to be there, okay? And so that exists in this family. That is the best smile I could muster up in that moment in terms of how I felt. Now there's another bit of evidence. Right before we went out to take this photo, Parker was 3 at the time, slipped and fell and hit his face on the corner of our entertainment center. He's yelling, he's screaming. I pick him up. He has a huge gash right beside his eye. By the time I picked him up, blood is pouring off his face and dripping off his jawline. I wipe it off. I look at my wife and I said, what do we need to do? Do we need to go to the ER? Do we need to call someone? Do we need to see a doctor? Like, it looks pretty deep. And she goes, just wipe it off. Let's go take the picture. And I went, what? And she said, yeah, we're already all dressed. We're never going to have another time. The leaves are going to change and they're going to fall and they're not going to be there. Let's go take the photo. I'm like, he has blood pouring off his face. She goes, yeah, let's go do it now. Let's go. That's not how Parker actually looked in the photo. We bribed him with so much candy to smile, and in the real picture, there is blood dripping down his face that we photoshopped out. And someone commented, what a perfect looking family. My 3-year-old just looked like he got in a gang fight, folks. Every time you compare, not only is it not real, you lose joy. And you're doing it to yourself. So, you didn't use the candlestick. You used comparison. Next one. You didn't use the dagger. You used discontentment. Use discontentment. We have this deep-seated belief that different is better, that their different life, their different relationship, their different house is better than my house. The Apostle Paul says this later on in Philippians. He says, I have learned to be content in every circumstance. Contentment didn't come naturally. I had to learn it. I had to teach myself contentment. Some of you in this pandemic, you're trying to get out of it and you're trying to move past it when there's something that you are called to learn in it. Teach yourself contentment. We don't naturally walk into contentment. We have to teach ourselves contentment. And here's the truth about contentment. Discontentment gains momentum in our life. If you're younger and you're always thinking that the next season will bring joy and happiness, that only compounds and is multiplied as you move throughout life. You must learn contentment in the season that you're in, so you'll be ready to teach yourself contentment in the next season. You did it. You did it. It wasn't meant to happen, but it's through discontentment that we lost joy. This next one's one of my favorites. You didn't use the rope. You used joy pressure. Joy pressure? What's joy pressure? It's this. Am I happy? Am I happy? I feel like I should be happy. Walk into your job. Am I happy here? Walk into your marriage. Am I happy? I feel like I should be happy. The quickest way to lose joy is to constantly ask if you're happy. When my wife and I, when we were first married, we don't deal with our emotions like this anymore. We found a far more effective way, and it just goes like this. I'll just walk in and be like, hey, I'm a little cranky today. I just want to put that out there on the front end. It's so much easier just to speak those emotions on the front end. But back when we were early in our relationship and we were really concerned about how the other person was feeling, that doesn't really exist now in our relationship. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. If I was off, Bethany would do this. She'd ask me, she'd be like, are you mad? I'm like, no. And then 5 minutes later, are you mad? You seem mad. No, I'm not mad. 10 minutes later, are you sure you're not mad? You really seem mad. I'm mad now. I'm mad because you keep asking me if I'm mad. Like, that's why I'm mad. Like, you're asking, it made me angry. If you constantly ask yourself, am I happy? Am I happy? Am I happy? You won't have joy. Have you ever seen a little kid running around with all the joy in the world? Are they doing that going, am I happy? Am I feeling happy? No, they're just going. They're just going. Stop asking yourself constantly if you're happy. You will lose your joy. And the last one that I want to identify, and I hope this doesn't come off too heavy, but I'm going to have a blast doing this. And I think this is going to be helpful. You didn't kill it with the monkey wrench. You killed it with the nightly news. Now I need to say something, and some of you are going to hear this and you're like, Kevin, you sound like a conspiracy theorist. This is obvious information that somehow I think we've missed over the years. The news is a for-profit industry. It is not a public service for the good of its citizens. It thrives on viewer retention through ads that they sell. We understand that? And so the number one goal of the news, be it what you watch, what you click, what you share, whatever that is to keep your attention. There is nothing that keeps your attention better than fear. Whether there is something for you to be afraid of or not, it is in their profit industry's best interest to ensure that you feel afraid in some way to make sure that you don't change the channel or go to a different organization. The statement in the news industry is this: if it bleeds, it leads. And so if you watch the nightly news, it will have this run: disastrous national story, disastrous international story, good news local story, because we can only handle so much, bad local story, weather, bad, sports, and then something to close off at the very end. It is designed to make you afraid. Like they have done studies on how people who watch the news frequently, what it does in their life. And it says this: people who watch the news regularly are more likely to believe their neighborhood is unsafe, believe crime rates are rising, overestimate their odds of becoming a victim, and consider the world a dangerous place. This is the fruit, and no one is forcing you to do it. No one is forcing you to constantly feed yourself information that is caused to make you afraid. The human mind was not meant to handle all the problems of the world in a 30-minute segment. When I hear how bad things are going all over the world, it makes me afraid. And it causes me to feel helpless, and I don't even serve those around me because I think, what good will it do when people are starving across the world? What good will it do when this disaster is taking place? Turn it off. Click on something else. The last thing you would have ever thought that I would ever say in a message: quit looking at the news on your phone and play Candy Crush, okay? Do something else. You killed your joy. I know you didn't mean to. I know you weren't like self-loathing and go, yeah, I'm out to kill my joy today. But we did it to ourselves. And here's the humorous thing to me is we're not actually the only species that does this. So there's this study that was done on monkeys. It is known as the Capuchin Monkey Fairness Experiment. If you want to, on behope.church/notes is where we put kind of the bibliography for the sermon. We have a link to this video from TED Talks that you can check out after the service is over. After the service is over. We could not show the video now because of copyright stuff. But in the experiment, there are two monkeys. And we will just refer to this man over here as the scientist for the sake of brevity. And what the scientist does is he goes to the first monkey, this fine-looking fellow that you can see right here, and he has the monkey give him a rock. And so the monkey gives him a rock, and the scientist gives him a cucumber. And they repeat this over and over again. He gives him a rock, he gives him a cucumber. Gives him a rock, gives him a cucumber. He eats the cucumber, he loves it. And all of that is going well until this guy over here gives the scientist a rock, and the scientist gives him a grape. Now, anyone with toddlers is going to go, well, that's going to be a problem. That is not going to go well. He gives him a grape. This guy over here can't believe it. He looks at it, he goes, what's he got? What is that? That's a grape? In monkey world, grapes are much better than cucumbers. In human world, too. Grapes are much better than cucumbers. And so the scientist comes back to this first monkey, and he goes and he has his rock and he gives it back to the scientist, and he's expecting to receive a grape, and the scientist gives him a cucumber again. And he takes the cucumber, checks it, smells it, puts his hand outside the little hole, throws it at the scientist. Scientist goes to the next monkey, he gives him a rock, he gives him back a grape. He grabs the cage, starts shaking it and screaming. He's outraged. How dare he get a grape? This is so unfair. All I got was a cucumber. Sound a lot like us, maybe a little bit. You go, oh, those monkeys are silly. Oh, those humans were silly. He was perfectly satisfied with the cucumber until he started looking at his next door neighbor and go, how did he get a grape? I've worked harder than him. I've been here longer than him. How on earth did he get a grape? My message to you this morning is really simple. Quit staring at the grape. Quit staring at the grape. You were satisfied with the cucumber. Like, the joy is in what you have, not in what you thought you deserved. The joy is in what you have, not in what they have. That is where the joy is. Quit staring at the grape. Quit doing the things that kill your own joy, because it doesn't end. Like, these things gain momentum. Now it's a grape. Next year it'll be an apple. The year after that it'll be a strawberry. Like, if you don't master these things now, discontentment gains momentum. Comparison gains momentum in your life. And it doesn't get easier, it will just get harder. And so you have to have, at a certain point in time, to just go, no. I'm going to be joyful in what God has given me. God is after my joy, and he's going to give it to me in the way he deems that I need it. I can't get God's joy in my life through how he gives it to them. I can only receive God's joy through how he gives it to me. There's this scene in which Jesus, post-resurrection, is with Peter and John, and he's telling Peter the kind of death that Peter is going to die. And Peter looks back at John and he goes, well, how's he going to die? Like, if I'm going to die this way, then how on earth is he going to die? And Jesus looks at Peter and says, if I want to keep him alive till I return, what is that to you? Follow me. It doesn't matter how he lives. It doesn't matter what happens in his life. What is that to you? Peter, you're trying to get John's joy. You can't get John's joy. You can only receive the joy I have for you and how I give it to you. Quit trying to steal your neighbor's joy and receive the joy that I have for you, that you would look at your life and go, I'm gonna rejoice, grape or cucumber. I'm gonna rejoice, whether I like my circumstances or not. I want God's joy for me. And so I will receive what God has for me. I want God's joy for me. I can't take your joy and put it in my life. I can only receive God's joy and receive it in my life. And I want his joy for me. And so I will rejoice. What is that to you? This pandemic's been harder on you than it's been on them. It doesn't matter. My marriage has been harder than I thought it was going to be. What is that to you? This season has been difficult. It doesn't matter. God has joy for you. Receive it now. Quit staring at the grape. Everyone who's willing to rejoice, take a second and let's celebrate our God and what we trust in him. So, I got one more verse that I got to show you. And this has been a whole lot of, man, don't do this. Stop doing this. And I don't want you to walk out of church ever and be like, well, he told us a really long time. Stop doing this. I want to give you something proactive that you can do. And so I need the band. Band, I've got some other illustrations. If you'll make your way out whenever you can and set those up, don't worry about what's happening on the stage. We'll get to that in just a second. I want to read you James chapter 1, verse 2. James, we need to acknowledge this. James, the brother of Jesus, who believes that his brother is the Savior of the world and the Son of God. Like, there is no greater evidence for our faith than that Jesus' brother believed that he was sent from God. How much would it take for you to believe that your sibling was the Son of God? Quite a bit. James died when post-resurrection, the religious leaders pulled him up on the temple, expecting him to say that his brother was not the Son of God because they promised him his freedom. When he begins to preach about the goodness of Jesus, they throw him off the temple from the highest part they could reach, expecting him to die. James doesn't die from the fall, is laying on the ground, continuing to preach about God with the crowd gathered, and he can't even get up. And so they came up and clubbed him to death. Now that's awful, but we need to know that because we know James has been through hardship and difficulty. And James says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. When troubles come your way, James, who was clubbed to death, consider it an opportunity for great joy. This is what we do. When things come our way, we begin to ask, what emotional bucket should I put it in? Is this cause for envy? Should I be scared? Is this joy? Is this, should I just be sad about this? Does this just make me mad? When troubles come your way, we go, well, where do I put it? So let's give a couple. My Thanksgiving looked different this year. Man, my Thanksgiving looked different. This is one of my favorite times of the year. It makes me sad. This is how we deal with our emotions. I'm excited to go to college, and my entire semester was remote learning. Maddie Glass, which bucket? Which one's this go? Pick the cooler. Anger? If you said joy, I was going to come back and like, Maddie, we're an honest church, Maddie. Maddie, anger. This is what we do. This comes into my life, and this is what it is. He says, no, you consider it joy. The number of COVID cases are rising, and people I care about are infected. Well, I've got only one way to deal with that. It makes me scared. I'm afraid. This is a better translation of James chapter 1, verse 2. It comes from the ESV scripture. They say it like this: count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds. Count it all joy. The reason why this is a better translation is that original word in Greek that they translated as consider is a financial term that was used in the practice of accounting. It's a financial term in the practice of accounting. And so what James is saying to his listeners and readers throughout the ages is when something difficult comes into your life, there is only one bucket you need to consider it in. God is after your joy. So you count it as joy. If you're taking notes, write this down. Faith is single bucket accounting. Faith. I trust that God is good, and I trust that God is working for good, and I'll explain why in just a second. But you would be able to go, man, this makes me mad. But God has told me that everything is going to work for my joy, and so I can trust in him. Man, this makes me really sad, but I can trust that it's going to work for my joy. Yes, I know I should be afraid, but God has said that this is going to work for my joy, and this is why. The word joy in the original Greek is the word charan, C-H-A-R-A-N, and you go, that word looks a little familiar because it's where we get our word character from. Your joy level will never exceed the quality of your character. Because you can't have joy if you're always concerned if the lie is going to catch up to you. You can't have joy if you spend all of your time looking around at what everyone else has and what you don't have. You can't have joy if you're feeding yourself information that is going to make you afraid of the future. Our character grows in difficult circumstances. Our character grows when things are hard. Now, this is what I know about myself. Even though I know my character grows in difficult circumstances, I'm not smart enough to willfully enter into those difficult circumstances, and I choose ease and comfort every time. Anyone else with me on that? You go, yeah, I picked the easy way because it sounds better. I'd rather sit on the couch and watch Netflix than enter into things that are going to develop my character. God, knowing that, in his great mercy, either puts or allows difficult circumstances in my life, and in so doing grows my character. And so when I face difficulty, I don't want to forfeit the joy that is rightfully mine. And so when I face things that I wouldn't desire, I count it as joy because I know my God is good and he is working in ways that I don't even understand for the good of me, for the good of my family, for the good of my friends, for the good of our community. I know that he is working for my joy. Now, here's something that we're going to get to later in the series that I need to touch on for just a second. Joy is strong enough not to be the only emotion in the room. And so you may not always feel joy in the moment. In Hebrews 12:2, it says that Jesus endured the cross for the joy set before him. This is why we don't ask if we're happy all the time, because there's some moments when you won't feel that joy, but you know God is working for your joy. Joy can handle being mixed with sadness. Joy can handle being mixed with anger. It doesn't rule out all the other emotions, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. But James goes, faith is going, I count it as joy. I don't even know how, but I know God is working for my joy. I know somehow within this, God is going to increase my joy. And so even though my kid got a 92 on the test and the neighbor's kid got a 93, I count it as joy. Even though I really like this guy, but I just found out he's vegan. More steak for you. I count it as joy. I had a roommate in college. He used to do this. He played for our college basketball team, and every once in a while we'd just do screen and intramurals and pickup games together. And he always did this, and it made me so mad. Every single time he shot a three that he knew was going in, before it went in, he'd just yell, "Count it," right in my face. Like he had this slight fadeaway, and I couldn't quite block him, and he'd shoot it over and over again. Count it, shut up. Count it, because he knew it was going in before it went to the basket. What if we had the same level of faith in our life? That when something came into your life, you didn't have to see the evidence to know the verdict was already there. I count it as joy. I'm in the middle of preaching a great message and the congregation is unresponsive. Count it in advance. All right, let's get you in on this. You ready to have some fun? You go, oh my goodness, what is happening? I'm struggling with pandemic fatigue. Who is it? Who's there? Who's willing to go, I'm struggling with pandemic fatigue? I see you, Andy. There you go, pop up, pop up. I'm throwing it to you. This is what I need. As he raises it, I need a drum roll. And as he shoots it before it hits the bucket, I need us to yell out, count it. Can we do that? Can we do it together? You're like, oh, I'm terrified. He left the stage. What's happening? You should count it as joy. Ready? Drum roll, please. When he shoots it, give me a count it. Count it. Went to Sam's Club. Toilet paper was out of stock again. Who is it? I know you're there. Some of you are buying all of it. Someone's felt it. All right, in the back. Will you pop up? Will you pop up for me? Come close. I can't go past this camera, otherwise they lose me entirely. Went to Sam's Club. Toilet paper out of stock again. I can see you. Be ready. Count it. Bought Oreos. They weren't double stuffed. I don't know why they would do that. Bought Oreos. I know they weren't double stuffed. Why do they even make the slim ones? Go ahead, crumple it up. Like, who are you kidding? They're not healthy. You're eating Oreos. Do it together. Count it. Went to church for the first time and all I got was this stupid t-shirt. Where are you? Who's been there? There you go, right here. I know you'd never say that, but you held it. Ready? All together. Count it. Didn't sing my favorite songs in church today. Didn't sing my favorite songs in church today. Josh, is this you? It's Baby Got Back, isn't it? I knew it. Let's get a 1, 2, 3 together and shoot it. 1, 2, 3. Count it. Oh, Scott Etheridge. I wrote this one just for you, and I've been waiting every service for this, okay? This does not happen in any other service. Scott Etheridge got put in Facebook jail. All right, give me a count it. Over here, I got this one. Just had to deal with my critical family over Thanksgiving. We'll see them again in 30 days. Here you go, Melanie. This is my sister. Give me a 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Count it. I got 3 left. Got cut off by a car with a Be Hope sticker. You've been there. I've been there. How did this happen? Come on, I'll make it deep. 1, 2, 3. Come on, Jason. 1, 2, 3. Count it. Golden Corral is closed. That's mine. All right, last one. Gained 4 pounds over Thanksgiving. Oh yeah, you got it. All right, last one. 1, 2, 3, count it. I want to give you the whole message in 9 words, okay? The whole message in 9 words. Quit staring at the grape. Count it as joy. Why don't I have joy in my life? I'm doing it to myself. Quit staring at the grape. Why am I feeding myself fear? Why am I feeding myself discontent? Why am I feeding myself all these things that I know are robbing me of my joy? Quit staring at the grape. What do I do when it comes into my life? It may be messy. It may be difficult. I may not know how God is using it. I count it as joy. Quit staring at the grape. Count it as joy. Quit staring at the grape. Count it as joy. We rejoice in a God who is good, not in circumstances that are pleasant, not in a life that is easy, but in a God that is good. Church, stand together. Let's celebrate our God in this moment. Take 10 seconds. Thank Him right now in this moment. He is after our joy. We want joy, and we thank Him for all that He's done. Let's celebrate this. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today at our Be Hope Church YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button below so you never miss a video. And you can join us every Sunday online at behope.online, or you can like our Facebook page or participate in our online community through our Facebook group. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please subscribe, share, and review this. Make sure you invite a friend into what's going on. And if you want to support the ministry here at Be Hope, you can learn how to become a First Church champion by going to behope.church/giving. Thank you so much for being a part of what we do, and we'll see you back here real soon.